All right, so you want to develop healthy habits to support your business goals, but most likely right now you're here because at some level you're self-sabotaging. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you the step-by-step for you to understand so you can get into action. The first thing to be aware of is, let's take a scenario where an entrepreneur wants to be more consistent with their marketing and be on camera. But the trouble is that they have a lot of fear. And so this is why personal habits are so critically important in developing an entrepreneur. I'll give you an example. Fear is an energy. So for example, if an entrepreneur starts meditating, that is going to help them because it starts to relax their nervous system. If we are also eating correctly, if we're getting fitness in, all of these things help our state of mind and the way that we think. And the way that we think is going to impact our confidence. And so when we want to build our confidence, that intrinsic true confidence, the personal habits are really important to put in place. But what happens is, most likely you're in this cycle where you do something once or twice in the example of meditation, but you fall back, and so you're inconsistent. And that inconsistency doesn't wire it in to be automatic. And that's really why you're here. If you're looking for videos on developing habits, it's because you want it to become automatic, and it's not automatic yet. And what you need to do is you need to build up streaks. So not just doing once or twice or three times, but you need to be doing that for a week. You need to be doing it for 6 weeks. You need to be doing it for 12 weeks. So it becomes part of who you are. If, for example, an entrepreneur is drinking a lot, and this is very common for disconnected entrepreneurs, then the way to shift that and change that is to break the cycle, just like sugar, right? The more sugar you eat, the more you're going to want it. And so if we've trained our body and our nervous system into a certain way, then we need to start reversing that. In reality, from helping hundreds of people, willpower and discipline isn't strong enough. And so what needs to happen is accountability. And so people can shy away from accountability because they don't like to be challenged. They are not upfront and honest about where they are. But accountability is key to get you to a certain amount of streaks so that it becomes automatic. Now, if information alone just helps you and some of you have an insight, then feel free to go and start to try and build up the streaks yourself. But in the example of course completion as one example, right? A lot of entrepreneurs who are in fear in particular, and they have these other emotions where emotional intelligence has not been developed yet, then course completion is low, unhealthy habits are higher, and it's just actually part of the entrepreneurial journey. Because here's why. When there's so much pressure and so much work to do, this creates disconnection. And so when you have that amount of disconnection, you're going to go to things which are unhealthy to feel better about yourself. All right. So the key healthy habits to develop are the basics. It's getting a good night's sleep. It's eating properly. It's getting the fitness in. It's getting the mindset and the mental health in with the meditation, right? Going and starting to, for example, play pickleball, which is something that I love, and building up that habit and enjoying it again. So you want to recognize, and this is, I would say, the most important thing, that the way that the brain works with what's called neuroplasticity is it needs to wire and fire consistently in order for it to become part of who you are, essentially. Going back to alcohol, because I think this is an important example, there's this push and pull a lot of the time, right? It's like, okay, I want to give up, but I just keep on falling into the habit again, right? The negative habit. And so there's this push and pull between what you desire, but what your subconscious is pulling you back to do naturally. You will notice this. For example, I recently moved from one apartment to another apartment in the same block. And the other day I walked back to my old apartment because it was so trained within me. And so what needs to happen is for me to walk to the new apartment enough times for that to become automatic. So think about that in the same way when it comes to you developing your habits. You need to get the streaks in. So how do you get the streaks in? Well, there's certain apps. There's actually an app called Streaks where you can actually build that in. Mentally, you also want to set yourself reminders. So your phone is a great example for you to set reminders. Then accountability. You could find a friend or a group of people to hold you accountable. What I do in, for example, my programs, because I noticed that there were low completion rates of people going through transformation programs, was I built in tracking, right? So tracking every single day, monitoring every single day, and consequences. The trouble with some accountability and even being around certain people is that they will let you off the hook. And so consequences are very important, where things are pulled away if you don't take action. And that's actually why investing in yourself is important, because if people don't invest, then what happens is they don't take it seriously. And so you need good coaches that are willing to call you out and challenge you and hold consequences. And then also for you to make and bank on yourself by saying, I'm serious enough and actually making an investment. So I want you to think about this. What is the first habit that you need to create a bigger amount of streaks for? And also recognize and become hyper conscious, aware of the triggers that cause you to break the cycle. Now, this trigger could be broken by a partner, is one example. For example, you're trying to give up alcohol, and then your partner says, hey, do you want to drink? And that is the emotional trigger that breaks the cycle. All right. So if you're wanting to increase your streaks, because you know that the streaks now create the habits, you've got to become what I call emotionally aware of the triggers. And in business, we have KPIs. And so we also have these emotional KPIs, right? These emotional trigger points that we need to track and measure so that we get better results, right? In business, you track the KPIs to look at revenue, and emotionally, we also need to track and measure this to see, okay, where am I falling apart and how can I better create the consistency? And the consistency comes from those streaks. By the way, if you want to get access to Super High Performance and go through 7 days of training where I help you to meditate, I also take you through a conscious series of questions to help you become hyper aware, then there's a link in the description. So post into the comments and let me know which of the habits you are now going to create a bigger streak. And even if you go from, say, 3 days to 7, that's progress. And then you can actually start to take that more seriously. The other thing that really helps with consistency and building in streaks is other people's stories and case studies of them having done it. Inside the community, there's over 30 to 40 case studies, men and women who have built up the consistency through the super high performance habits that we have tracked and measured for a 6-week period every single day. And I know that if you're committed, you'll get the results, because if you're not committed, you won't. And I'll see you in another video. Take care.